And where's the correct arrow? Come on. One of these arrows is supposed to do it. No, it's not working. So, okay, let's introduce ourselves. There are not that many today, but I got a long list of of old equipment. So
I had one of those.
yeah, that was my first novice rig. So, all right. So, anybody first rig was homebrew? Okay, how about military surplus? Amoco?
Yeah, I had one of those just like that.
Yeah, WD6T here. I had one too. EF Johnson? National. Heath?
Yeah.
I had a,
Oh, yeah.
I had a Heathkit DX40.
Yeah.
DX20.
DX20, 6 Yankee.
DX60B.
NA60 with a hot water 16.
And I had the SPs, but that was after the Amoco. Okay, Valiant. Ico.
Yep, I had a Nyko 723 with a POS. Glad I got rid of it.
Lafayette. I had one of those 6-meter AM thing and it was terrible.
Yeah, I had a receiver, also another POS. Glad I got rid of it.
Hammerland.
They made a decent receiver with a mechanical filter back in the 60s.
Okay, how about Hammerland? Hallicrafters.
Yep, KA6BM.
SX99, AE6JV.
Yeah, AE6Y, same thing, SX99. Yeah.
SX28.
Whoa, SX28.
It was my dad's radio.
Uh-huh.
Mine was SX117 or 119.
Yeah, that was my first receiver too. Collins.
Couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Drake, not the same, probably.
2B.
2V, yeah.
2A.
How about Swan? Kenwood.
That was the first one I bought. That's
Uh-huh.
the TS820. Still have it.
Yeah. I'm afraid most of us predate the Japanese makers.
Say, Andy.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, this is Don, AA6W. Can you see me?
Yeah, we got you, Don.
Oh, hi, did you get to Kenwood? You said Kenwood. I used the TS520 at the junior high school amateur radio club. That was the first radio I used back in 1977.
Good for you. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
how about Tentec? Yaesu.
FT101D.
Yeah, and 6WM, FT857D was my first radio.
Getting to the young whippersnappers now.
Yeah.
Icom.
WK6I Yaesu FT101 Easy with a Tentec 6-meter transverter.
Nice.
Say, Andy.
How about Ellicraft?
Oh, hold on, Andy.
What's that, Don?
Oh, sorry about that. Good evening to everybody. Merry Christmas. So update, right? Yaesu, then 1978, my first transceiver in Saratoga, Yaesu FT101 EE without the speech processor. Go ahead, Andy.
This is Dave, WD6T is running this. I would add though, when I got back into radio in the 70s after being out for a while, Yaesu FT301.
Very cool.
First modern rig. Yeah.
Okay, how about Ellicraft? Or Flex? Or something else?
Globe Chief.
Whoa.
There you go.
Back to helicrafters, I had an S38B.
Uh-huh.
I have the Ellicraft K2 10-watt QRP radio that I build. It works great.
How many people had a Heath AR3 receiver? Anybody? Remember the
My brother
5-tube
had one.
radio? No, all right.
All right, well, moving along here. So here's the agenda for today. We got some club business, some remarks from Andy. Now I'm going to introduce the RTTY Roundup, and then we're going to have a discussion about it. first thing. Whoops. All right, so there you probably have gotten an email about a bylaw modification. And it's mostly just clarifying a few things. It's not very controversial, but you should check it out and you have an opportunity to vote. Try not to fall asleep. Now, on to something a little more exciting. We have 2 new members to vote in today. First one is Dirk, AF6DR. He lives in Kensington. I can walk to his house from my house. His previous call signs were KK6TGJ and DL6DR. He was licensed in 2001. He was nominated by NT6V. I think he lives a few doors down from him. And myself and Gary. His rig is an IC7300. He's got an Urban Beam that recently belonged to Chris. He's also got a Mercury 3S, an IC9700, an M2 Leo set for 2 meters and 440, and a Helix for 23 centimeters. He's 50% CW, 30% phone, 10% RTTY, and 10% other. And he says his contest experience is little, but interested in learning. And I think he got on the CQ Worldwide and had a great time. So,
hi, everybody. Yeah, nice meeting you all. And thanks for the introduction. And yeah, Michael actually lives right next door, and was great when we moved in to find out that the next door neighbor is a ham radio operator. Made it much easier to put up an antenna on the roof. So and getting his support was even better. So yeah, he helped me and introduced me to Chris, from whom I got the Urban Beam. So yeah, and it's working so well. So it has been a lot of fun. Not really competing, but sort of just tipping my toes into contesting with the Urban Beam, and the 50, 30, 10, 10, that was, I understood that's kind of, interest. So I have no experience whatsoever contesting RTTY, and just a little bit CW and maybe even less phone.
well, welcome, and we'll get you all set up with RTTY, and
Yeah.
we can do the RTTY roundup.
Cool.
So let me move on, and then we'll do the official vote in. Okay, so first we've got another new member, Dave, K3GX. I'm not sure if he's on the call. Are you here? Maybe not. He lives in Livermore. His previous call signs were WN4RDI and WA4RDI. He's been licensed since 1975. He was nominated by Roberto and Gary and Ian. He has an L-Craft KX2 and an end-fed half-wave antenna for 40 meters and up, and he does a lot of summits on the air and parks on the air. He's 90% CW, 10% phone, and 0% the others. His experience includes ARL, sweepstakes, phone, and CW. So he also ran a big multi-station in Virginia that he said ranked high in the state with call sign K1GG. His favorite contest is ARL sweepstakes and CQ Worldwide. And he said he was mostly inactive from the 90s until recently, but he's gotten into SOTA and QRP and is having a great time. And he said he's working on his CW speed, and he's now up to 25 to 30 words a minute. So next when we're in person, we have the people leave the room, and we have a vote. Since we're on Zoom, we're not going to do that, but since it's always unanimous anyway, let's just say welcome to the club, and congratulations, and we're really happy to have you.
Yay.
And
Yeah, that guy, is that last guy a PVRC or a YCCC sleeper agent coming in, or what?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we can blame Roberto.
You know, it's kind of odd when somebody has a K1 call in Virginia and then in California now has a K3 call. It's
Yeah, what's up with that?
a little odd.
That's the suspect.
Yes,
We'll have to interrogate him.
Hey,
Okay,
Dirk,
back-
I'll reserve a chair for you when you care to join a multi out here.
Okay, appreciate it.
So I'm going to turn it over to Andy now, but first, actually, I'm going to bring up his slides.
That's not one of them.
Semaphore, Andy's semaphore report.
Semaphore, yeah, this is great stuff. Looks like it's right out of the Boy Scout handbook or something.
Right. Okay, here we go.
Okay, just next slide. Just going to talk a little bit about some recent results to get us all in the mood. So we talked about sweepstakes CW last meeting. Sweepstakes, after the last meeting, we had sweepstakes phone. I did a full-time effort in that. Boy, it's, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with sweepstakes. I'm not sure about everybody else, but there are portions of it that are a lot of fun. And then, you know, of course, on Sunday, it can get a little slow. But we had some really excellent scores in the multi. The N6WM crew at NRO did extremely well, as did W6YX. And they had some new operators there, YX too, some young guys, or I guess they're young guys, but in any event, relatively inexperienced. So I think Dave and Mike deserve some credit for introducing people into the sport. Rich did fabulously at WC6H. I mean, third place in the big dog category is really impressive. And Don GHA also has a very good QRP score. And of course, Matt did very well in phone, or excuse me, these are all phone. Matt did very well in the unlimited category at W7RN. And then and then Bob, K6XX, got on for another QRP score. So these are all outstanding results. It was a good contest for the West Coast, actually.
K6XX ran QRP.
That's what it said.
I know. What's the deal with that?
I don't know. He's been on recently, obviously running a lot more power than that. So I'm not sure what the story was there. Next slide. The big news
more power to him.
The big
Lots
news
more.
was the club victories, though, and PL 259 with, I think, had 9, maybe we had 10 logs, won convincingly in the small club category, and MLDXCC did a great job. I think they had 47 logs, which is really a lot for a small club, for a relatively small club. They did an outstanding job getting participation. So both of those clubs did extremely well. If, by the way, their scores were added to NCCC scores and Redex's scores, we would have been in second place as a really big club. So that's something to think about for next year. We'll talk about more about that later. Next slide. ARL 160 and 10 meter contest for the last couple of weeks. And in the 160, this is not really a West Coast contest, obviously. So I put up some scores here without indicating what place they were in nationally, because the place is a little depressing, but Dave's called WD6T at RO. That's a great score, really. 83, I guess that's 83 sections and 12 DXCC, I think. Is that right, David?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really outstanding from the West Coast. I mean, obviously some of the East Coast guys get a lot more multipliers. And then also in the single op category, Dave did very well, W6DR, and then Chris using your LRG station. Both of those are very credible scores. Again, they're not high up in the rankings because that's the way it goes from the West Coast, but they're really very good scores from here. Next slide. Last weekend was 10 meters. These are just some preliminary results. And these are, again, some outstanding results. In the single op CW unlimited category, Bob K3EST at Ken Station now has a second place score, 256K, which is outstanding. And it's a lot of contacts. It's fewer multipliers than some of the East Coast stations, but more contacts. So there's kind of a trade-off there. And N6US, that's KH7Y, also did quite well. In the low power category, K6KM at W6SRR, very nice score there. Congratulations. And in mixed, I don't think Mike is on the here. I didn't see him, but W6N7MH, Mike did a great job at the Stanford station, and he was on both phone and CW. It was interesting. I got on a little bit, mostly on Sunday, and it was exciting to hear 10 be alive. It wasn't worldwide propagation, obviously. It was very spotty and would be really strong signals from Illinois or really strong signals from Florida or something like that. But that's the old 10 meters. It was frankly energizing to see that at all. And now I have to give an award, and I'm glad that KA6BIM is on here, because at the next slide, I'm giving him an award here, a virtual award. And Dave, you'll have to confirm if this is true, because I took this information from Dave's 3830 or his write-up. And what he said, and again, Dave, you got to confirm this, Friday night was absolutely dismal with only one very weak contact for 5 hours of trying. And then Saturday, in the last 3 hours, he had 0 contacts in 3 hours. So that's 8 hours and 1 contact. And that gives Dave the butt in chair award. And now, so Dave, I have to ask you if you're still here. Is this actually accurate?
Yes, it is. And there were actually several more hours in the middle that had 0 QSOs.
I don't want to hear it. No.
But yeah, Friday night was absolutely dismal. I was on track for this to be my second worst since I started this contest in 1978, but Sunday did pull me out.
Wow. So was this on CW? Like, are you just pressing F1 over and over, or do you have an automatic? I mean, how do you spend 5 hours and have 1 contact? What do you actually do?
Well, I tuned the band for a while and nothing there. So I'd call CQ for a while, just try to drum something up. And meanwhile, I kept a book handy with me and just kept plugging on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly get a doggedness award for this. So congratulations. And as I say in the bottom line, you actually reported
Say, Andy.
Saturday morning and Sunday morning, there was decent activity. So congratulations.
Yeah. Andy?
That's 10 meters for you. Yeah, Ken.
I think Bob Cox is on tonight. He might give you a real rundown on the unusual propagation, because he was in the chair for over 30 hours. He was there whenever anything happened.
Okay. So is Bob in the meeting now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, do you want to talk about, why don't you talk about that right now, Bob? Because your write-up mentions a lot of hours and some interesting propagation.
Well, there were two really interesting propagations, which I guess didn't make it up to where Dave was in Oregon. But the first one was on Saturday evening. There was a great e-skip opening across the whole U.S., which lasted for about 4 hours.
When did that start?
Started around 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, I gave up about 6 o'clock and came up to have dinner.
I'm going to revoke your award, Dave. You see,
I went back down
another hour.
I went back down at 10. Well, I was after 3 hours there. Then I went back down at 10 and found it open and worked till after midnight.
Yeah. It was open quite well that on Saturday evening. You're right, and it was the skip was really fantastic. Another interesting thing, which probably not many really serious people caught because they were looking at the band being not open at 6 before sunrise. It was open. Really, I got up at 5 a.m. and nothing happened. Usually things like I've got a guy in Wyoming, a guy in Arizona. Then all of a sudden at 6 o'clock in the morning, an hour and a quarter before sunrise, the band opened wide across the whole U.S. for 2 hours. From 6 in the morning to 8 in the morning, I had over 100 contacts. It was really unbelievably weird. And then it closed down, and then it opened up again at 9:30 like it did on Saturday. So that's my strange 2 openings.
So what do you make of the early morning one? That one sounds very, very strange.
That is strange. I don't know what to make of it. It was there, and all of a sudden K4AB called me from out there in Alabama or someplace. And then all of a sudden it just opened up all the way across the states, and there was nobody there. I don't even think YX was on. He probably was figuring it wasn't open until like 8 o'clock or 9. Mm-hmm. But by the time 8 o'clock rolled around, it was dead. The band went out to essentially from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock was maybe 4 contacts or so. And then at 9 o'clock, 9:30, it opened up like it did on Saturday across the whole US again. Anyway, it's always fun.
Quick question for Bob.
Yeah.
Bob, I maybe you mentioned it now. Were you on the East Coast or you were here on the West Coast?
Because I'm on the East Coast, I have a much better score.
So that's what I thought based on the way you're saying it did open. I thought maybe you were on the East Coast. No, that's very interesting. So you saw the opening from the West Coast. Very well. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, I was at RO's. I was at Ken's place, and it worked very well, no problems. And as you pointed out, if I was on the East Coast, I at least would have worked Europe. So
Oh yeah. Well, that's
Were there
very
any
cool.
other West Coast stations that caught the pre-sunrise open? Because you wouldn't even think of it. Normally, I'm surprised you were even up and saw it.
I always get up at 5 o'clock every contest in the morning, no matter what on a high frequency, on 10, 15, or 20.
He's not lying.
I get a cup of coffee and I sit down and I listen to the hiss. But this time, basically, it opened. So that was so weird that I was happy to experience something. That's what you live ham radio for these weird things that happen to you every once in a while.
It was slightly different up here in Oregon. It came alive for me about 7:30 and went till about 10. And it was wide open to the East Coast, except for the ones, it was wide open to New York and to stop there.
It really, a 10-meter contest is really a series of individual contests. There's no such thing as equality among anybody. So
it's very much related to 6 meters. It's almost all sporadic E, except for the transequatorial things that happen. And you can have totally different propagation 100 miles apart.
yeah, that's right, and maybe even closer than that, Jim. Basically, it was the opening was all the way across the states. The only state I missed was North Dakota. Never heard it, and it was open very well to the ones. Dave, we had a great opening to New England from down here.
Oh yeah, I worked a lot of ones, but they were all in Florida.
Yeah, K1TO and all those guys. Oh, that's right. Well, I've noticed on Aruba that we would get absolute spot propagation where I might work 15 stations in Ohio and none in Michigan, for example, or 15 in Indiana and none in Illinois. And you just think, how can it be that precise? But that precisely focused. But sometimes it is. Well, that's a great story, Bob. Let me
go
on.
Spotlight propagation.
It is spotlight propagation, and it's very exciting. Next slide, please. Okay, just upcoming contests. We have the RAC Winter Contest that Dave wanted to. Do you want to talk about that, Dave, at all? I know nothing about that contest, really.
Okay, I have a terrible memory. I didn't even remember that I did it, but I looked at 3830 and I did a 20-meter single op from RO last year and came in third. And that after 2 VEs. It's a really fun contest. It's hard to win from here because the VEs are, I forget, 5 points or something, and we're 1 point or something along those lines, but it's still a lot of fun. There's a lot of activity. It goes from 160 all the way to 2 meters. And it's not unusual to just keep a radio on 6 meters and you're completely ignoring it. And suddenly you hear a couple of guys in VE6 gabbing to each other and you jump in and make a couple of contacts. And there's different categories. And anyway, it's worth checking out.
Okay, other Ken?
Ken, yeah.
Yeah, I've done this contest for at least 30 years in just about all the categories. We only did multi once, but I've done all bands, single op, and every single band except 10 meters. I never bothered with that. In recent years, I've done 160 single op. We're attempting to do a multi this weekend, although the response from my team has been underwhelming. But I will be on 160. There's unusual rules in categories. There's the single op all band, the multi-single, and multi conventional modes. And then there's CW, but that's all bands. If you're going to do CW only, it's all band. There are no single band CW or single band sideband. So if you go single band, you have to be a double, you have to be able to talk and diddle at the same time. Anyway, it's a fun contest. It's only active for about 18, 19 hours. It's an easy contest to do, and it's friendly, and it's just a fun contest.
The KA6BIM. Just to add in there, it's not just working Canadians, although the Canadians are all worth more points. but it's also, you can work anyone can work anyone. You get
Right.
points for US stations, points for, Europeans, JAs. There's a lot of Europeans that do work the contest. Surprising that you'll get DX calls in there. But the Canadian
six.
stations, their club stations, the RAC stations are worth 20 points each. Canadians are worth 10, and all the rest of us are worth 2.
All right. Well,
It's got 6 meters too, right? 6 meters.
6 and 2.
Yeah.
2 meters also.
Okay.
And if you
For
do it,
Vancouver on 6.
yeah, and if you do it, please beat N800.
Fat chance.
Okay, well, that's a good addition. December 31st, there's SKN. I think it's actually 24 hours. I think of it as being the evening. I actually enjoy it. It's not a contest. It's the idea is to use your straight key. Last few years, I've gotten on with my hand key, my J38. And sometimes I actually get out a bug and try to practice and try to be good enough so I can send without embarrassing myself. It always takes a few hours to get back in the spirit of that. The funny thing that I notice about this is the idea is just to talk to people and chat, but guys who were novices many years ago, as many of us were, we tend to revert to the old style of QSOs, RST 579, 579, QTH, San Jose name, and that kind of thing. And it's just the sort of things that people did when they were novices back many years ago. And there's a lot of reversion to these old styles of sort of contact, which is sort of seems to fit appropriately with the old keys. Anyway, I encourage people to do that as just a kind of fun activity. After that, January 9th, the RTTY Roundup, and of course, that's the focus of tonight's presentation. It's a focus contest for the club, which we've done very well in, and Dave WD6T is going to lead the discussion. Both NAQPs, CW and SSB, come up in January along with the VHF contest. So we will be also pushing the NAQPs and flogging those contests. Our club has always done very well in those with teams, and we're going to try to do that again. So that completes the my report. So let me turn it back to you, Dave.
Okay. Get my slides going again.
Yeah, get rid of my semaphore there. I was never good at that.
It's a message.
Yeah.
Whoops, somehow it went back to the beginning, right? Okay. All right, here we go. So RTTY Roundup is the focus of this meeting. I hope we have about at least twice as many people as we have on now. We need a lot of logs. We need 50 logs at least, but we'd really like to have 60 or 70. It's January 8th to 9th, so it's a little later this year than usual, just because of the way the calendar falls. We're going to go for the gavel again, and we need everybody. We've won the gavel the last couple of years, and we can do it again. Now, if you haven't tried RTTY, it's a lot of fun. It's fast paced. It's takes a certain amount of skill, but you can learn it pretty quickly. And I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun. It's also a good chance to experiment with SO2R or 2-band synchronized interleaved QSOs. If you want to do that, you basically just need 2 rigs and 2 antennas that or a triplexer or something. Because with RTTY, there's not a whole lot of switching that you really need to do. So you can also use it as an opportunity to, if you like to collect awards, work towards a RTTY Worked All States or DXCC or whatever you're interested in. We also have NCCC plaques and certificates for achievement levels. So the first time you get 500 QSOs, I think, is the first one maybe. You get a plaque, a really nice plaque, and then I can't remember exactly what the breakpoints are, maybe 750, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000. Also certificates to everybody who participates and contributes. And you also get time to sleep if you're a single op. And so we need you. So please do it. Okay, now we're going to have a survey to know who's going to be participating. Gary's going to send around a link. You don't need to copy that thing right now, but you'll get it in your email. please answer it and maybe look back at what you did last year or the year before, or if you've never done it, please consider doing it. The floggers this year will be Gary and Jack.
I'll see if I can do it as good as Chris did a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember Chris getting up when I first joined the club and he said, "Come on, guys, we do ready." Okay, so here's the rules real quickly. It starts at 10 a.m. on Saturday Pacific time and ends at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Single ops operate 24 hours with a complicated break rule that we'll go into in a bit. Multi-ops can operate all 30 hours. Everyone works everybody once per band, but not 160. Ws and VEs send a signal report and their state or province. DX sends a signal report and a serial number. And the mults are all US states plus DC, and the Canadian provinces plus Labrador. And the mults are, the DX mults are DXCC, except Alaska and Hawaii count as states. And the categories are kind of unusual. At least I was a little surprised by them. So there's single operator unassisted is RTTY only. And there's 3 categories of that subcategories: high power, low, and QRP. The single operator unlimited, also known as assisted, also has those 3 powers, but it has 3 other divisions. So it's RTTY only, digital only, and mixed RTTY and digital. So I guess all in all, there's 9 categories of single op unlimited, if you include the powers and the subcategories. So yeah, it's good to remember that FT8 is and other digital are allowed, and it's easy to forget that. But so I stuck a little icon up here to remind us. You don't have to do it though. Okay, so there's also 3 multi-categories: multi-single, which doesn't have QRP, but it has low power or high power. It's mixed mode only. There's no option to just do RTTY. And it's the limitation is 10 band changes per hour. The multi-2 is high power only, as is the multi-multi. And it's also only mixed mode, and you only get 6 band changes per hour per transmitter. And then the multi-multi is, of course, you can do whatever you want. It's high power mixed mode. So here's some resources. W0YK, I'm not sure if he's on, but anyway, he has a great set of resources of slides that he presented to the club last year. And they're on the members only area. You go to the members only area of the website, then there's a link that says RTTY Roundup. You go there, and then it's pretty much the first thing on that page. Also, RTTYcontesting.com is highly recommended, has detailed instructions on setting up 2 of the most popular loggers, and also installing the decoders and encoders, etc. The NCCC reflector is also a great resource. So if you have any questions or problems, please post there, or feel free to call any of us and bug us, and we're here to help, and we want to get everybody on the air. Last year I helped a couple of people and they ended up submitting nice logs, so that was a good thing. Now here's just I wanted to show some rates similar to what oh, there's my dog. Sorry, wait, let me open the door. Come in. Similar to what Bob has been showing, but since this wasn't a multi, so I can't say what all, that we were on all the bands at the same time. But this was an M2 last year. The station was K6 MTU, the ops were ND2T, K6 UFO, K6 TD, and me. And you can sort of see what happened. The highest rate was at the beginning, between 15 and 20. And it was pretty good for a while. Then it moved to 40, pretty much what you'd expect, moved to 80. And we took 2 hours off, which we didn't have to do because we were a multi, but laziness set in, I guess. Okay, then we got on 40, you can see the, the usual pattern. Now, look at this number 52 at the end. So there's really good activity at 40 meters in the last hour. So that's something to keep in mind. And we can talk more about propagation. Particularly interesting, what I remember from doing it as a single op was right before sunrise and right around sunrise, the shift from 40 to 20, and there can sometimes be some good propagation on 40, either a long path or some kind of skew path sort of towards Japan into Europe. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to introduce our three panelists. So we've got three people who like RTTY a lot. So first, Chris, N6WM, and I just wrote a couple of things that they've done. They've done a lot more than I listed here, but I had to fit it on one slide. So Chris has won the Pacific Division in RTTY Roundup 5 times, and he's got a couple of division records. He won the NAQP RTTY Winter Contest. He was #1 in the contest. He's done various WPX efforts, including #1 in North America on single bands. Bill, W9KKN, aka ZF2WF. Also, he's got a RTTY Roundup Pacific Division win. He was #2 in the world behind W0YK, operating from ZF, I think. NAQP Winter, he was #1, CQ Worldwide. He was #1 in the world twice, or at least one is pending, but we hope. Okay, Jeff, WK6I, RTTY Roundup. He has 2 wins of all of US and Canada. He was placing second place twice in WVE, which is quite impressive. Also lots of Pacific Division wins, and he was #1 in NAQP Winter 7 times, plus the June one, which is harder to do out here. He was #1 twice. And then CQ Worldwide, he was #1 in North America, and twice he was #1 in the US. And Ed, I'm not sure if he's on, but he's kind of waiting in the wings, either physically or actually, or just in spirit. But we all know him. He's the one who's championed RTTY in the contest, in the club, and of course in the world. He's an advocate and has lots of really impressive wins, etc. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions, but we don't really have to stick to them, just to get things started. So feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and there'll be plenty of time for people to ask questions, etc. So I'm just going to kick it off by asking each of the panelists, how you got started with RTTY, and how, when, and why it became a favorite mode, kind of a sales job for RTTY. So let's start with Bill.
Oh, I need to figure out how mute works. Okay, so how did I get started with RTTY? Well, I think there was a couple factors. One, when I used to operate from home, from here in my townhouse in Sunnyvale, I had this dipole in the attic. I mean, it's still there. I don't think I've put RF into it in maybe 3 years. But one thing about RTTY is that it's very much a continuous duty mode, which means that all of the energy that's coming out of your transmitter is going into the antenna, and as much of it as it can, and your little signal, I mean, even compared to say CW, goes a long way with RTTY, right? But not only that, I would say that when I started operating from NW6P, I found that station plays really well on RTTY, and as I started getting more and more into contesting, this is the first chance that I really had to try my hand at STO2R or 2BSIQ. And that was really important because, I got a very good idea of the feel of it, the basic workflow, and I'm a technology geek anyway, so that's just how RTTY happened, I think, for me.
Okay, thanks. How about Jeff?
Well, let's see. I got my advanced license back in the late 90s and got on, and I wanted to do contests to do my DXCC and stuff like that. And I finally got my 100 countries, and I went over to see Arnie and N6HC, who I didn't live very far from, to do my card checking. And we got to talking, and I said, you know, well, I'm on HF and I'm doing phone and it's fine, but this RTTY mode has just got me stumped. I don't know how to make it work, and I've been beating my head against it. So he took me downstairs and showed me how to do RTTY down to the shack. And that's when I caught the bug, and the rest is history. 10 years ago, I see last May or something like that, Tom K5RC put out the word to the NCCC. It's like, hey, I need to get W7RN on RTTY. And I said, I'll do it. And it's been 10 years. So there you are.
Okay, great. Okay, how about you, Chris?
Well, I'm kind of an odd duck, right? I pulled my ham ticket in 2007. And I started working with the, I started immediately building the K6LRG station and working with the N6RO team. And back in those days, N6RO was not a RTTY friendly shack, but we wanted to get involved in it. And so Ken graciously allowed me to introduce, me and a couple of the other guys to introduce RTTY into the shack. And I think we started with a CQ Worldwide RTTY or something like that. But by 2010, I was going to take on the RTTY Roundup as it's probably one of the first major single op contests that I had ever participated in. And I didn't know who WK6I was. I didn't know who anybody was. I just went out there and just did my best in the single op category. And I ended up getting second place in the United States and beating WK6I, which yeah, it was kind of and I just got really excited at that point, saying, hey, yeah, well, I guess I can do this. And from then on, I just, I've always had a love for this contest, and I've had lots of trials and tribulations with this specific contest, and I really feel like I'm now starting to become proficient at it. But it's always been a journey, and in the meantime, doing stuff like the CQ Worldwide contest, and just becomes a mode of preference. And in doing so, ended up joining the CQ Worldwide RTTY and WPX management team, and write the articles for both of those contests now. So that's how I kind of got involved with RTTY.
Okay, great, thanks. So I thought we'd start maybe talking a bit about propagation. I don't know about anybody else, but I always seem to remember the propagation from the previous contest, which is always out of date by a couple of weeks. There's my dog. Sorry about that. He's got a cough. So yeah, I don't want to play last year's or last month's game, or last week's game, whatever the expression is. So maybe if you can fill in a little bit about what propagation is going to be like, in your crystal ball, when the best times to be on are, especially if you're part-time, where to be pointing your antenna, that kind of thing. And then after that, we'll get into the full-timers and when they might want to take a break. So Chris, why don't we go in reverse order? So you want to start that?
Sure. This all, obviously, it's all subjective and represents my opinion, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I could come up with a couple of very fine points. And the first and foremost point, which will tie into off times, is to the need to be QRV in the last hour of the contest from here. That's a specific from W6. And the reason why I say that is because the 40-meter band, as you pointed out with your little rate sheet there, will open up to Europe, possibly or probably, in that last portion of the contest. And what happens is that because of the oddity of the off times, and I've done this That's Luna. Luna's on the prowl. Sorry about that. That last hour of the contest, the band might open up to Europe, and you need to be present for that. A lot of people tend to, like I said, I've done it twice, have taken my off time at the end of the contest. You're either tired, you think, yeah, I'll just take it at the last 30 minutes or whatever. And I've done that multiple times. And I often warn other operators, don't do this. Don't do this. And sure enough, like just this last time, it was the exact same thing. Made sure I was QRV for that last hour of the contest, and sure can be, I started running Europe at the end of the contest.
Well, that's a given of propagation. 2 hours before sunset, 40 opens, and another hour later, 80 opens.
Yeah, and so you want to be present for that. So that's a major propagation point. The other propagation point I would mention is East Coast sunrise. Just like ARRL sweepstakes, and it's somewhat controversial. I know Ken swears by it. I also swear by it. There's a propagation enhancement, on the low bands for East Coast sunrise, and you want to be present on 40 meters and 80 meters during East Coast sunrise, and you will get a spike in QSOs during that time period. How you integrate that into your off time is important. And again, a part of the finer points, maybe one of the other guys will cover that, but I'll usually end my off time, QRV for East Coast gray line, get that propagation enhancement, get those runs done, and then take another break after that. So those are the two propagation points that I would mention. I'm sure the other guys have other ones as well.
I have a question for you, Chris. And the most important question for me is, what time do I have to get up in the morning to run Europe on 20?
Well, that's actually an interesting point. And for me, at least the last couple of times here, it's been a finesse of taking that off time after East Coast gray line and being QRV for the European opening. Now, one of the beauties of this is you could stay awake and you can listen to the band and you can see European stations printing. And so, if your off time finishes up and you're going to be QRV anyway, you're going to point your beam in the morning toward Europe over the pole, right? And you're going to start CQing or start, spinning a dial and, looking for European stations, see if they're printing you and see if you work them. So it could happen anytime after that East Coast gray line, just like Bob Cox said, on 10 meters before, you got to be there. And so what I normally do is I take that initial off time, do the East Coast gray line, then get back on the air and listen while I'm on my second little off time and watch the band. And sometimes it's a little kind of anxiety. Like I heard W9KKM working all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I'm running out. I got to get back on the air, And finally, my time period came up, and it's like, boom, you just go to work. And remember that since it's both the international and a domestic contest, that you don't have to wait for the European opening to start CQing. You can start running domestic contests, and eventually the Europeans are going to come in my experience.
Well, so, for me, I'm a night person. So setting my alarm is is the key. So I'm really asking you when I need to set my alarm to work Europe on 20.
When 20 opens.
Well, all right.
Basically sunrise, Jim. I mean, like as soon as sunrise is open, you're gonna start having Europe trickle in, and it's gonna happen rapidly. I mean, there's just gonna be an inflection point where it takes off, and suddenly Europe is accessible, and it'll happen like in 15 minutes. I mean, it's
I mean, Jim, you're an expert, Jim. I mean, that it starts slowly.
I've been doing this a long time.
You very good.
Yeah. I've been doing this a long time. But what I'm asking you, and I think you've answered, you and Bill, is what's doing now?
So last year, I'll tell you when my first EU was last year. Give me like 2 minutes.
I can tell you that 20 exploded right at 7 a.m. and that was one of my best hours actually. So chances are Europe was present for that.
And that was from Reno, right? Or from
Yes.
Nevada, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I probably lead you guys a little.
Mhm.
And if you have the time, I mean, if you're up and you have the spare time, and you haven't taken all the time off, look long path before that, for that half hour before that,
Yeah, on 40.
on 20 as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I agree. I got some good mults while I was waiting around for 20 to open. Yeah. All right, so
Okay,
anybody, Jeff or Bill, you have anything else to say about propagation?
Well, so okay. First of all, let me answer Jim's quick question here. So the first EU, actually, for me, it was the first. Oh, that was Asiatic Russia. I'm sorry. Okay, so the first EU was, let's see here, would have been 1249 Zulu, so 13 Zulu. So you know,
That was last year?
That was last year, yeah.
Yeah. And what was it like last weekend or the weekend before in worldwide, for example?
In
When did
worldwide,
we-
I didn't do from here. So that was actually 5 a.m. Last weekend from worldwide, I don't know. I didn't do it from here. Ken, do you know?
Anybody else? Yeah. Anybody else?
Bob Cox might know. Bob would be able to tell when the first Europe came in during worldwide.
One thing I want to emphasize about sunrise, sunset, the daylight side of it is 2 hours on 40, 1 hour on 80, half hour, 45 minutes on top band. That's true on the daylight side of all of the gray line stuff. And people, you know, they think it's got to be dark. No.
Yeah, it's even sometimes it's better before it's dark. To Europe.
Yeah.
Get up at 5 a.m.
Yep. But Bob Cox says get up at 5 a.m. and the band will open up for you.
Yeah.
In the CQWW contest on 20 meters, Jim, the sort of was the best part was between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning. I mean, if you get on that, you're going to work a lot of Europeans. It was open a little bit before that, of course, but that's the peak.
Thanks, Bob.
I just pulled up Ken's log from worldwide, and I can just chime in here for a sec. The first day in the morning, Western Europe came in, so Portugal, Spain at 14:30. The second day, it was different because the first few contacts are with zone 15. So Balkans and Italy came in at 14:18. So roughly the same time.
6 o'clock, 6 a.m.
Yeah, I just looked at my NW6P log from 2 years ago, and my first Europe was 7 a.m. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it right though, that's you're not trying to time it so that you're awake for the Europe opening. You're basically, as soon as 20 opens up, you're starting to work the East Coast anyway.
Yep.
Because your off time's ended, and then Europe's just going to start coming in when it comes in.
That's correct.
Now you're going to want to have you know, even when you're working, you know, if you have only one direction of your beam, you might have it up at like 45 or so, and then when the first EU comes in, you might slide it over to 30, you know, 30 degrees or so. That's kind of what I tend to do. If you can beam split in 2 different directions, then you're set.
Which is what I do.
Yeah.
Jeff, what about you? You have any propagation advice or?
Obviously be there at the start because everybody is. There is some stuff going on. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's all like in the sunset time frame is when 40 was really lighting up for me. So, but the other thing too is you talked about East Coast sunrise. The JAs are there for you too on 40 and even 80 meters at that point. And the rest of Southeast Asia and stuff, and you might pick up a few good multipliers that way that our friends on the East Coast can't access. So,
Yeah.
so don't forget to look that way.
Your first 20-meter EU last year, for reference, was at 1500, 1455 actually.
And I want to add to what Bill said is in this particular contest, if you're capable of azimuthal diversity, because it's both a domestic and an international DX contest, and you can, like Jeff just mentioned, you know, have a beam on the East Coast and another one on JA. And remember, you can have multiple bands up at the same time too. That you know, you can get a pretty high rate of QSOs coming in from all over the world simultaneously. So
I have a question about the East Coast sunrise thing. You know, I would imagine that if I was on the East Coast and it was my sunrise, I'd be on 20 meters pointing to Europe. So rather than being on the low bands pointing to W6, but is that wrong?
I'm gonna, you know what, you know who should answer that is N6RO. To talk a little bit about the East Coast gray line phenomenon.
Well, it's usually there all the time, and it's very productive in the winter months, darkness.
Is it just a propagation enhancement that is it the gray line enhancement?
No, yes, and it's also activity. The guys are getting up on the East Coast. So the activity is really what makes the spurt in the East Coast sunrise, plus the enhancement. One thing came to mind about Asia Pacific in RTTY. The JAs and other DX hang out between 35, 25, and 35. Although they can operate higher than that, that's where they hang out by tradition, let's say.
Yes, no, it's actually by law. They can work each other down there. That's the trick.
Oh yeah, okay, but they can work us up to 75, I believe.
Right, but they can't work each other.
Are you talking about
Yeah,
40
so-
meters only or
80 meters.
That's the
80
80
JA
meters.
window.
oh, 80 meters? Okay.
So yeah, it can be productive to go down there. I wouldn't spend a lot of time, but you will find some stations to work for sure.
Yeah, be there at after 12 Zulu, 12 to 13:30, they'll be there.
Yeah.
And the prop you're exploiting to the East Coast is on 80, Ken?
80 and 40, SO2R.
Okay.
It's a sound sweepstakes strategy and it's a sound ready roundup strategy.
Yeah.
So should we
Or simulated SO2R, a la K7SS. He has a very fast band switch.
Okay, so let's say you were part-time and let's say you could operate 10 hours. When would be the best times? The beginning? We heard about the very end. I guess the sunrise would be good for what we were just talking about. What other times?
Oh, it's winter. It's the end of winter, but but it's winter. 40
so
meters.
I mean, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you what I would think. I would think it would mostly be on Saturday, and I would think, and part of the and I would cut out the middle of Saturday, and then at least get some of the EU openings on Sunday morning. If I were to limit it to 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the plan, because you're going to get most of the W's during the day on Saturday, and you're going to have a lot of EU. So Europe and Molts are going to be kind of your key to maximizing the score, right? So you'll get a big chunk of W's during the day on the high bands, and then you'll finish off with the EU opening into 40 meters in the late afternoon. And then you'll go to bed, and then Sunday morning you'll get a whole bunch of other EUs early in the morning on 20 meters, and maybe 15 if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right at our Sunset too, there's plenty of 40-meter activity if that's a strong band for you.
Yeah,
that really lights up.
And it's also possible short path Europe in the morning.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily bet on too much JA activity. I feel like it's been down in the last couple of years. I mean, it's certainly a good, it's certainly good when it is there, but I don't know. I've every time I've bet on it, it's not panned out.
I was thinking sort of like NAQP, most contests, the first few hours really are, the highest rates and stuff. And if you can possibly be there, especially if you can run, it's, just don't miss the first 2-3 hours, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Here, I'll show you a couple things just real quick here. So first of all, I wanted to point out, like we were talking about this earlier about the off times. So if you look at what happened last year, and Chris mentioned this briefly, but there was a really close race between himself, Mike, and myself at NW6P. I mean, we were basically passing each other and neck for the entire contest. I mean, Jeff obviously he ran away with it but he was in a different category. I believe he was unassisted, but. In any case, I just wanted to put these three up there just to show you just how close of a race this actually was.
P break close.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, really, it was. And I mean, like, it probably came down to just little minor differences, like P breaks, off times, exactly how much SO2R we did, that kind of thing. And just to kind of remind everybody what the off time rules are, we said we'd talk about it. I just want to make sure that we did. So it's 24 out of 30 hours, and every break has to be at least 30 minutes. But you can only have 1 or 2 breaks. Now we say that technically you can have a 3rd or 4th break because you can start late or you can end it early. But you really don't want to do that. To that point, if you kind of look at what happened here. I ended up, and these are our respective off times. I just did a quick analysis. You notice that the first off time, Mike and Chris did exactly almost exactly the same thing. Mike stayed off a little longer. Myself and Jeff did almost exactly the same thing. And then the second break is where we differed. Although even that wasn't that different. I mean, if you kind of look at it, I mean, we it just sort of depended on, I guess, what you were kind of locally feeling at that moment. But Jeff and Mike took the later break, and then Chris and I took the earlier break around, I would say it's like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. or so. And I chose to end 30 minutes early. Never do that. I mean, so basically, Chris got a couple extra 40 meter molts right at the end, and that's what did me in, man. So never again will I make that mistake. And like I said, I think the first break consistently kind of wants to be the very sweepstakes-esque break time strategy, right? Anyway,
I wish I had a screenshot of our Slack channel.
Oh God, yeah. we were talking some trash. It was pretty fun.
Go back to the first slide you had with your scores.
Oh yeah, sure. Let me like figure out how to share my screen again. There we go. Yeah. So here it is. So the difference is multipliers. I mean, if you look at the QSO counts, like. There's another thing that's interesting about this is that I spent a lot more time running and doing the 2BSIQ thing, but as a result, I missed out on some molts. Well, yeah, 7 or 8 to be exact, but
yeah, your 80 Qs and your 7 molts shows how important multipliers are.
Yes, absolutely.
Just
absolutely.
the difference between Mm-hmm.
By the way, these are adjudicated scores.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So
that actually looking at the claim scores actually adds more staccato to this point.
Yeah, I didn't even look at that. Yep.
I thought you said you were going to make a slide out of the ones that I posted on the Slack channel.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Well,
okay.
Anyway, yeah, that was going to be my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely, dude. Yeah. It exactly came down to that.
We had that discussion in the email about multipliers versus Qs, and it's like, yes, multipliers are important, and yes, queues are important.
Well, and the crazy part is that, even most of the logs will tell you like how many queues is a multiplier worth. And, like not 7 molts, it's probably going to be like what, 11 queues of mold or something. And that just happens to be the number.
Right.
One thing that I would mention that there are certain conditions that kind of change the weight of the mults versus queues thing. In this particular contest, we have a number of extremely competent multi-band SIQ operators. And because of that, the contest is extremely competitive, and it comes down to a few mults or a few queues. And because it's so close, those mults mean a lot more, where some people would say, no, a mult is only 7 QSOs, so try and make the 7 QSOs. No, it doesn't work that way in this contest.
Yep.
It's way too close. It's the mults count and the queues count. You have to find a balance, and there's a little luck involved, I think, too.
Yeah, so I mean, you could even see the same proportional thing in the rate too. Like I topped out the rate, but ultimately those molts cost me the game. I mean, it is what it is, right?
On the other hand, if the counter argument is if you spend an inordinate amount of time on a mult, then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Well, there's always a limit, but I think in this contest, you might find that spending a little longer on mults might pay off more relative to some other contests.
I think you're right.
So interestingly enough, I would recommend people actually look at my 3830 write-up for this contest, because I put a lot of thought into that write-up. On day one, I was spending too much time, in my opinion, searching for mults. And the rest of these guys pulled way ahead of me. And I ended up having to spend day 2 clawing my way back to try and get into a strike position, which fortunately I was able to get into a strike position and make those last few mults and pull ahead. But I was freaked out coming out of day 1. So I would recommend that you look at that 3830 and look at the decision-making change that I made about how I was strategically operating the contest, and I pivoted it in the middle of the contest.
The conundrum is that mults will come to you. So the trick is to be where the mults are going to come to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the strategy pivot I did. Instead of searching for mults, I pointed my antennas where I thought the mults would come to me. And that made the difference.
Yes.
That made the difference.
I had a good
By the way-
time watching it on scoreboard.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I wish everybody would do scoreboard. It's entertaining to me, since I'm just an observer these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a relatively valuable mult contest. Okay, so let's see what else. I was wondering about, technique like, what kind of macros used. Do you have some people have a fixed set of macros they use all the time. Others have they have a lot of variance. Like, if they think there's QRM, they have a macro that has more repeats. Or I'm just wondering how you deal with that, and also, how you effectively ask for repeats. Things like DX serial numbers and things like that. Anybody can jump in.
Probably the most effective way to ask for repeats, particularly when you're dealing with DX, is just to repeat the last thing you sent.
Yep.
Just repeat that. Don't try to ask a question. Just repeat that, and then they're going to try again too. As far as providing and dealing with QRM and stuff, I try to make my macros so that I can add to them easily. So I can add a call at the end, or I can add my state to the end or something like that, just a couple more times in case I need to feel like it has to punch through. And if anybody does ask you for a repeat, just send the thing that they can't guess. In this case, it's your state. So just send California the next time and instead of your whole exchange. And that's really what they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I actually posted a couple of my macros in here. I want to point out a couple things just in case people were wondering, just that are little minor nuances. So first of all, what's weird for people that don't do RTTY a lot is kind of the format of the CQ. So I mean, normally the trick is that really what you're trying to do, since this is a contest that is going to get skimmed, where the skimmers are going to automatically decode you and spot you. The weird part is that in RTTY, the CQ is at the end normally, and then and there are a few of these little catchphrases like RU or worldwide, or a few others where the skimmers are looking for actually messages that start with that and then end in CQ, believe it or not. Like even if you say CQ at the beginning, I believe it still works, but really it's looking for it at the end for whatever reason, right? And CW skimmer doesn't do the same thing. It's just RTTY skimmer for VE3 NEA that's just how it's coded, okay? So that's sort of number one. Number two, and this is something that I don't know that everybody does, but first of all, I like to put a new line in front of my message, and I also like to put a space, because there are a lot of RTTY decoders that will unshift a that'll take, like if you know how RTTY works, right? Where there's an explicit byte sequence that's being sent to say turn from letters into numbers, and sometimes that can be erroneously recorded, but if a decoder gets a space, then it automatically resets to letters. So I usually put a space in there because I explicitly transmit, okay, dumb recorders out there, make sure that you reset your state so that you decode what I'm sending you properly. And it's a little thing, but I found that this actually helps a lot, like surprisingly a lot. It's just one of these things where you say, take it or leave it, but it is one thing that I do. The other thing that I really would encourage people to do, and this is going to be a little bit of a controversial point, but I'm really into the idea of call stacking, and not even just if I'm a DX station. One of the things. So what is call stacking? First of all, what it means is that, let's say that suppose that I have several people calling me, and they all kind of I see like 3 or 4 call signs. And W0YK has made this argument before, is that you need to slow down to win. Basically, what you do is you collect a couple call signs, and really in N1MM all you do is you just double click more than one of them. And if you have it set up correctly, and I'll show this slide later. I mean, this slide's kind of showing you the kind of keys and things you have to have enabled to do it. But effectively, and you also have to have the macro too. Specifically this one. For it to work. But what happens is that you avoid a pileup. So, let's say that I work KL9A, and then I also heard N6MJ in there. I can, what N1MM will do if it realizes this is going on and it's so configured, is as soon as I send a thank you to KL9A, instead of sending the whole thing, it'll actually pop the next call sign off of the stack and then come back directly to the next person in this list. And what's helpful about that is that with RTTY pileups, they're all kind of 0 beat, and most decoders aren't really good at pulling out, simultaneously 2 people on top of each other. They have to be a little separated in time a little bit. Otherwise, you don't really get, it's not like CW where your brain can kind of, or sideband where your brain can kind of pick out more than one. So effectively, by avoiding a pileup and avoiding another go around, you're saving part of your part of the QSO, and you're getting rid of an entire go between, and as a result you can move a little faster. So if you have that enabled, it's largely automated, to be honest. I mean, the only thing you have to sort of realize is that sometimes maybe you accidentally got an exchange in your call stack, or you got a garbled call or maybe there's an extra letter at the end. Or you have the exact same call sign in your call stack as the guy you're currently working, for whatever reason, N1MM lets you do that. And you just need to make sure you get rid of it before you complete this QSO, otherwise it'll completely confuse the guy when it calls him again with the next go around with the same exchange. He'll think you didn't really work him. So anyway, these are sort of my macros. The other thing that I always make sure that I have is this one here, move. I've actually had a tremendous amount of success with this. Not, like I said, not even as a DX mult, but believe it or not, just working at Tom's, I've said, thank you. I'm QRV on, in this case, this is the other frequency rounded to the, I think, nearest kilohertz. And what it does is it'll say, hey, I'm over here too, if you want to work me on this other band. And if I see a guy that I haven't worked on another band, believe it or not, I would say maybe 7 out of 10 times the guy does it. He'll move over and work you on the other band. I mean, there's no, surprisingly,
Hey,
it
Bill?
works. Sure.
There's also the equivalent of that in one of the MTTY windows. It's,
No, I was going to mention that
yeah,
the way
okay.
Bill does it is a strategy. There's another strategy of in the DI window, there are extra buttons for additional macros, and in my case, I can at will tag on to the also QRV band too.
Yeah, I found that very, very, very productive when I was doing it.
Bill, question. Okay,
sure.
What's the difference between logged and pop and then logged and grab? And why do you prefer pop?
So logged and pop is to pop a call off of the call stack.
Grab is the
logged
same thing.
Logged and grab, I believe, is the equivalent of hitting Alt G. And if you're not using the call stack, so what that'll do is it'll actually it'll come from this other call stack that's down there, the call grabber, which is automatically pulling out any call sign. These ones in this call stack are explicitly put there by you. The grab call stack is actually at least in the configuration that I have, it pulls out anything that looks like a call sign in the text stream, which is, at least in my opinion, it's a little dangerous because normally it picks a lot of crap out of there.
It does.
So yeah, I have double clicked that extra call sign because I know it's right, and I've made sure that it went in the call stack and it was right. So it's just that where you're pulling it from. Grabbing is pulling it from the auto grabber. This is pulling it from the call stack.
Okay, I'll have to look into that more. Thank you.
I have a question. Is there a way to practice this? Like with some recorded RTTY or something?
I don't know. So one thing that I do know is that you can. So I actually do have recordings of RTTY contests. I did it for at least a couple of the worldwides because they said you had to. And you can, if you have a loopback device in your sound card, it's a little complex to set up, but you can tell your RTTY decoder to use a loopback sound card, and you can play into that loopback sound card, and then you could practice it that way. The other thing is just to generate this this guide here. I just I sent these call signs, and I like they were in my window, and then I double clicked them, and that's what put them in the call stack.
Oh, even if you sent it, you can double.
Yeah, it's not that smart.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing you can do really simply is just turn off your transmitter and start clicking calls and call stacking them and working them, even though you're not transmitting. At least you're going through the muscle memory motions of it.
If you have a K3, you can put it in TX test too.
Is there anybody here who actually still use WriteLog?
I was going to ask that question, right? Because normally I haven't done RTTY contesting since I moved out here from Minnesota 30 years ago, right?
Dude.
But so I normally contest with WriteLog, and it looks like, what are you guys using? Are you guys using N1M?
Yeah. Well, that's what Chris and I are using. I think you're still using WriteLog, aren't you, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm still on WriteLog. I was just going to throw in some WriteLog pointers for call stacking if they were required.
Yeah, please.
You tell me.
Okay.
Yes, I would do it, because even if there's not people on the call right now, if we record it, we are recording it, and we have a lot of WriteLog users. So yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so in WriteLog, in order to get the call in the stack, you actually do a right click. It brings up a menu, and there's like 5 things on the menu, and then you say push to stack, and then it goes onto the stack. You can get rid of all that menu stuff that you probably really don't need by adding something to the INI file in WriteLog. And Someone should remind me to post it to the reflector because it's a little long to go on with. But basically, you edit this section of the INI file, and the only thing that happens on a right click is a push, and it makes it very quick, very easy, and you actually have time to make decisions about who you're going to put onto the stack first by doing that, because it's so easy to do. And I'm a big one for deciding who to put on the stack and who to work first, if you want to get into that. But
yeah,
you want to get into that?
I think that that's really important, because one of the conundrums you can get yourself into when you're doing call stacking is that you're going to call people that have already gone away.
Right.
So, you know, there's a judgment call involved there. So that's,
and it's experience, I guess, for the most part. But you know, first off, hey, there's a multiplier. Work that guy first. Next, you're listening to the when they call and how loud they are, and maybe you know the guy or whatever, and you start thinking about who to put on the stack to work next and who on the stack to put work third, and so on. Try to make decisions about who's the most likely to stick around. The other thing about call stacking too, as soon as they see you're doing it, they're more likely to stick around because you're, because you're faster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Before we get away from this, can somebody tell me the quick and dirty way to put a call in the stack in N1MM? What do I tell?
Yeah, sure. So you can do it one of two ways. You can, I think you can control and click on it, or you can also double click on it instead of just single clicking on it. And if there's already a call being, if you already have a call in the call box and you've already started sending that message, if you click any other call sign, it'll go into the stack as well. So there's a couple different ways to get there. And then you to get rid of it, you right click it, and that clears it out.
And that's with logged in pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you right click on it in the call stack window or in the?
Yeah. You right click on that call sign, and then it gets rid of it. And like I said, so there's one there's kind of a bug there where sometimes it could be the exact same call you're working. It'll put it in there, and you just have to make sure, or it could be a gibberish call that you accidentally double clicked. You want to get it right. You want to right click and clear that window out. The window will actually disappear when it's not in use, because that'll change it so that the next time you do a, when you say thank you to that guy, it doesn't try to do a log then pop. If there's anything in the call stack, it'll do the log then pop. If there's nothing in the call stack, it'll just do a standard thank you by call sign CQ.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So every now and then you gotta say, oh crap, there's something bad coming here.
Yeah. Well, I'll try it again. Every time I try it, I have mixed results. So I feel like half the time I'm sending gibberish calls, or calling the same guy twice or whatever.
You pull off a 4-call stack, it's one of the better feelings in RTTY content.
Yeah. Two's a good day. 3's like, oh nice. 4, you're standing up and cheering.
You might as well ring that malt bell just for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's a question. So how do you, I know this is kind of probably a gut feeling, but where do you draw the threshold when you think you have the call versus you think you need to get a repeat or the exchange? I mean, there's often, you see like 3 or 4 versions of it, and I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are about sort of accuracy versus rate.
Yeah, I have an opinion on that. Experience. I've got a wet super check partial database in my brain, and I'm sure Jeff does too, and maybe Bill's got one too. But a lot of these people we have worked over and over and over again, and so a lot of that is just being an experienced RTTY operator. And not just RTTY. That's probably the same for CW and for phone, and getting a partial on phone. You've got a super check partial database that forms in your brain after doing this so many. That's not to say that you can't use the super check partial database and make a judgment call based on it. But That's my opinion. I don't know.
You know who the repeat offenders are. That's what I call people that I work in every contest.
Right.
So
Familiarity.
what's that?
I said call sign familiarity. That's
Yeah.
why I didn't change my call when I came to Seven Land.
But there's
Yeah.
also another thing, which is like you're trying to work a DX station, and you know it's really crappy copy, and you're trying to figure out if they really call you or not.
Oh, if they really called you or not?
Yeah.
Sometimes, sometimes it's worth the risk. It depends on how rare the DX is. I mean, if it's like a
Ask
DL,
for a fill.
DL, or yeah, just ask for a fill.
Ask for a fill and see if they come back to you again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Confuse them a little bit.
do the repeated, last thing you sent, repeat the last thing you sent, and do that. But if you're trying to decide if someone's calling you, get used to what your call sign looks like when it's partial. I got like 2 open brace RN I know is W7RN because I see it often enough and I know that's what it is. So practice makes perfect, like with any mode. You see me working all the RTTY contests all year. That's why I do it.
Well, that's an interesting thought. Are certain characters garbled in certain repeated ways? I mean,
just remember,
there's the shift versus non-shift.
Learn to read figs.
But are there other things like where a certain letter will tend to be certain other letters?
No.
I notice patterns, and the funny thing is that I do this often enough. I recognize certain patterns. I couldn't tell you what they are, but when I know when I see them, and I go, "Oh, that's this," and I go, and that again comes from practice. The other thing too is you got to listen. You really do have to listen to what you're receiving. You won't be decoding in your head per se, but you'll start to know what your call sign sounds like. You certainly will know what a CQ sounds like. You can decide, gee, does this signal sound clear enough that it probably got decoded okay? Or wow, did it just get clobbered? Those are the things you're listening for.
I will quote the CQ Hall of Fame RTTY operator W0YK. If you're not wearing your headphones, you're losing. That's what he says.
Right. Well, a lot of that, of course, is just timing. Basically, you're going by the timing. But I didn't know you could actually recognize the.
For sure. And you can even recognize some of like the defects that you're expecting to hear from the, like, is it a fluttery or a selective fading situation on the RTTY signal? That might even kind of inform which of your several decoder windows you might look at.
Bingo.
Like there's a lot of situations. Or did it get cut off? Did they is their computer experiencing jitter? Like there's all kinds of deformed RTTY out there, man.
Now, do you run what speaking of the decoders, do you how many decoders do you run? Like the what's it called? The two-tone has different modes that emphasize different.
All of them do. All of them have different
so do you run them in parallel, or do you switch the mode dynamically, or?
So I run as many as I can in parallel. I try to run. So one thing I found is that there's actually a limit to how many decoders you can run on a single PC before N1MM starts kind of breaking down and like actually slowing down your decodes and your sends. So you don't want to hit that number, whatever that ends up being. It turns out about 7 or 8 decoders on my NUC knocks it out pretty handily.
Wow.
Yeah, but one of them's RTTY and one of them's MMTTY, and then 6 of them are two-tone. And I mean, there's a certain point where like I'll right click, or sorry, I'll try to send a message and it'll start a second later because the CPU is so busy.
Wow. Right log is only $30.
Yeah. Okay.
I seem to have had a problem in recent contests where it's hard. I don't know if I can explain it exactly, but somehow the decoders get confused about where the tone frequencies are every now and then, and I have to go back and reset them. And does anybody else experience that? No.
No.
You've got AFC on, and you've got it moving too far.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Turn all that off.
Yeah.
Learn to grab your RIT.
Yeah.
Sort of off topic, but for the newer people, there's 2 more weeks left of the Thursday night RTTY sprints. And so they are good ways to check out your complete setup and practice.
Yeah, and I should say that we're not, we haven't covered the basic stuff of downloading the stuff and get some of these decoders are very squirrely to set up, but there's really good directions on that those links I
Yeah,
put.
Don Hill's website is gold.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
definitely reach out for help if you're doing this and you get stuck or.
Yeah. I mean, back to the question of how many decoders though. I would really love to have two-tone in all three of its modes. I'd love to have at least one MMTTY because MMTTY rocks. And I'm really partial these days to Gritty as well because it's got some nice Bayesian analysis that sometimes it decodes something that the other four don't. So anyway, what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I haven't played with Gritty. I run the 3 two-tone decoders and then MMTTY, and I actually still run a hardware
Nice.
modem. The hardware modem still pulls it out sometimes that the others don't.
The DXP38 or which one is it?
I got an ST8000.
Ooh.
Eduardo, I've got an ST6000 sitting in the somewhere collecting dust. How do you hook those up anymore?
Now, is there are any of you using two computers?
Yes. So yes. Last time, so in Worldwide, I recently started doing 2 computers instead of one for the SO2R. I liked it a lot more, I have to say.
Oh, for sure.
It just seemed to be a little, yeah. That solved all my decoder problems, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's what made me think.
It doesn't solve mine because I use 2 computers to have 4 radios.
Yeah.
With interlock, 2
So then get
computers
3
with interlocks. And I'll tell you, as we roll into the solar cycle here, there are going to be 3 bands active. Jeff's scores my scores were all going to be up in the 300,000s and higher because the propagation's better. There's more stations to work and there are more bands open. And having the ability to have more than 2 radios and having the ability of not having to worry about decoding stuff with your brain and just letting the computers do it, it frees you up to do a ballet where you're running on 3 bands. And that's pretty tense, I will have to say. It's
now
probably
you're listening to 3 bands.
Yeah. It's tense, I guess is the right word. I mean, I've literally cracked a sweat in that environment where I'm literally sweating.
So can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah,
sure. Go for it, guys.
Yeah. So so back in the old days, about all I could get out of my amp before RTTY would melt it was about 300 watts. But that seemed to be like plenty. At what point does power sort of hit a point of diminishing returns and start becoming rude?
I haven't hit it yet.
I'd say
1,500 watts.
Yeah, 4 or 5
about
kilowatts.
4,500 watts or so. Just kidding.
You guys,
for every beam.
yeah, 1,500 watts per beam. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, guys.
I want to get back to the 2 computers again. So do you then have 2 mice, 1 per hand, and you just do it?
Yes.
I have 3 computers.
Yeah. You know, 2 mice and 2 keyboards, and I mean, I've gotten used to doing it both ways, and man, yeah. After a while, using the mouse actually hurts your arm a little bit. I mean, maybe I'm just a weakling, but.
So if you have the means, the first experience you have with this will probably be a 10, 15, and 20 meter opening, where you'll be running on 15 and 20 meters, and then all of a sudden you're going to look over and see that 10 meters is open too, and you're gonna. It's tough. It's definitely an acquired skill. I don't know. I hear right log is easier to manage in this situation than trying to deal with it with N1MM and using right click, left click mouse ESM.
That's probably beyond us mere mortals.
The last time I heard about N1MM was they didn't even support multi-computer single op. So
Oh, they do now for sure.
they do now. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I run 3 computers. So I've got my 2 main radios and a third radio because I run an assisted by choice. Then the third radio is there to keep an eye on whatever band I think I might be going to next. And that's been really helpful. If you've just got an extra old laptop and an extra old radio, you can just listen on an extra antenna. You know, that's going to be an advantage.
Yeah, I wanted to address one thing that I heard there. Say someone said that for the mere mortals. I mean, so if you have a station that can be on 2 bands at once, like you have 2 radios, you have an SO2R controller, you have filtering between your radios, and you've always maybe you're somebody who's said, I can't do this 2BSIQ thing. It's too hard. It's too complicated. Or I can't do SO2R. I've never tried it or something. I've been trying to get into it. RTTY is the way. Okay, RTTY is the way you get into it. And because the point is that the computer's doing all the decoding and you can focus on the interleaving and the timing. Whereas in traditional SO2R you have to do both, and it's going to be an overload, right? And if you ever found that SO1R RTTY is kind of slow and you can sit there and read a book or watch TV while you're doing it, if you add this to it, like Chris was saying, you're going to break a sweat because there are going to be times where it's just complete bedlam, and you're dealing with a lot of people calling, and you're trying to just make it happen, right? And I would encourage you to really and by the way, it's somewhat simple to set up. So first of all, I mean, this is the concept, right? I mean, you're CQing on one band, you're getting an answer on that band, but while you're getting that answer, you're CQing on another band, and then you're trying to fit sort of 2 QSOs in the span of one time period. Now the trick to this in M1MM is combination of 2 things, right? So one, it's the fact that you have intersends message mode, which if you're kind of familiar with it, is basically every time you hit enter, depending on what's already filled in the call box and where you are in the QSO, M1MM knows what the next step is in the QSO. So, whoops, didn't mean to do that. But it turns out that there's this whole right-click equals return not menu option here, which means that instead of hitting enter, you are right-clicking. So the right-click button on your mouse or the secondary click on your mouse becomes the enter key. So what you do is you sit there in this contest and you decode a call here, you click on it, and then you right-click and you respond to that guy, and then it starts sending there, and then you decode a call here, you click on it, you right-click, and you start sending to that guy, and you just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to keep roughly the messages of the same length in your macros so that it kind of lines up. But you can get some really high rates doing this, guys, and it's fun. It's like if it's your first time doing it, you're going to see rates that you've never seen before, and yeah, there's going to be a little bit of QOF factor while you get used to it, but pretty soon you'll be like, okay, maybe I'm ready to try this on CW or sideband, maybe.
I've been able to coach some of our most junior operators at N6RO how to do this.
Yeah.
I've been able to get them running 2BSIQ like this in like 15 or 20 minutes. They're good. They're off to the races.
Yeah.
There's special hardware actually for RTTY. You're not dealing with what you have to do with CW or anything. You're just running this radio and running this radio. The logger tends to take care of it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no reason to, you don't really need to be able to switch it to mono or anything. So you can just have a sort of, spaghetti, couple of, cables and then a Y connector and into your headphones.
Yep, exactly.
And as you become more experienced, then you have the ability of introducing the third band, right? And that you're actually, and I don't know, Jeff, what do you think? But for me, 3BSIQ is probably max. The 4th band is just awareness, right? Or do you actually run on 4?
Yeah. Yeah, basically what I'd be doing at that point is that I see 10 is kind of popping up and just trying to pick off multipliers when I can in between CQs. And
I've actually gotten myself into a conundrum where I'm running on all of them. I'm running on 10, 15, and 20. And you blow it sometimes. I mean, sometimes you lose your run frequency.
Well, yeah, you're not getting your CQ out there enough, so you really got to be careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
The thing I do to listen to 3 radios, I've got a mixing board. I just set up a mixing board, and I've got the stereo audio on all 3 headphones, and I just mix in I use different tone levels also. So each radio uses a different tone pair. So I got high tones on the right and low tones on the left, and so on. So
yeah,
start mixing it.
Yeah, you're chopping up a little bit. That's why I'm interrupting you, because it sounds like
sorry.
you're done, but you're not. But the other thing I do is very similar. I have one of those Dune Star, the old Dune Star audio mixing units, and I actually pump the audio to both of them both into that, and I use that to mix the audio and also try and tone once. Unfortunately, with Flex, if you're using 2 virtual radios, they have to have the same side tone. But if you're using 2 Flex radios, you can at least have 2 of them with a different side tone.
Right.
And so you can make some sense.
Yeah. I like having 2 tones, but I found that there's also an advantage to having 1 tone, because when you're doing 2 BSIQ, you can tune the guy you're tuning by the pitch that you're hearing in your other ear. So if you know what I mean.
But if you want to see some off the hook rates, you get rolling on 3 bands like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're gonna again hit that molt bell.
I guess it goes by your ear. I find it easier to tune in the other tone than the same tone, and it also gives me an auditory cue as to which radio should be looking at.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's also the point that's been made a few times in the reflector that the low tones have the advantage of a larger pitch difference for the same frequency change.
Yes.
So if you're only doing SO1R, the low tones have advantages.
Less fatiguing too, for sure. Like your brain
9,
will
15.
Yeah, almost for sure less fatiguing. Like those high tones will grade into you pretty hard if you do the whole contest.
Yeah. So I maybe this is a good time to just throw it open to anybody who has any questions or comments or anything.
Yeah, KA6BIM. How do you set up that? Well, I understand the logged in pop, but right now, I've been using logged in grab. It automatically will take a call and put it into the stack. How do you get the stack for pop?
I'll show you what.
Is it a different one?
Yeah, there's a different mechanism in it that's doing it. Let me see if I can open it up here. Boy, just like a half second here.
Yeah, because I've been using logged in grab for a couple of years, and I do get a lot of garbage in there. Most of the mistakes are my call that someone has sent with a garbled letter in it.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's why I like it to be explicit. So okay, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but we'll give it a try. So the trick is that I just took the screenshot like right before we started here. So it's under setup, it's digital call stacking, enable using first in, first out. That's one thing that has to be enabled. And that means that if I click on something, it's going to be see if I have to there we go. I have to control click on it, and then that'll as long as this option is enabled, digital call stacking, this little call stack window will come alive and actually show up. Okay, I believe that grabbing is there regardless of whether this is enabled or not. Okay.
Okay, I usually have that little window that on my MMTTY screens where that shows up, but that's for the stack or the grab window.
Yeah. So this, yeah. So this is MMTTY or this is M1MM's. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Not really. Oh shoot. This right here is the grab window for M1MM, and it turns out that when you're doing logged in grab, you're grabbing from the top of this,
Okay, it's a
And
different
it's
window.
it's the same button as the keyboard combo Alt G is pulling from this, and you can configure how that thing gets populated. So there's a call sign validity and highlight resources. That like this thing is what's actually, see, clear grab window. And there's a whole bunch of options that are actually kind of driving this window here, but none of them are as good as doing it yourself with this other interface. At least in my opinion, that it's just been my own luck. The other kind of key thing is that the defaults in M1MM are wrong for this. So you have to make sure that you so by default, I believe QSO before is F4, and you have to disable that, and you have to say next call is F4, which is this is normally disabled by default. And there's a whole bunch of steps to get that working, and then you have to have the macros actually ready to handle that in the F4 button. So that's where this kind of comes in.
When you showed that screen earlier, I saw you had used cut numbers on that. Isn't that a no-no for RTTY?
I don't think I did. Let me double check, but no, I don't use cut numbers in RTTY, or I might have it disabled. I think I said sent RST cut, but I have cut numbers disabled in the menu.
Okay.
So yeah, that is a no-no for RTTY. You're correct. I send 599 and then the text religiously. You don't want to send 5NN, because then you're changing between numbers or figures and letters.
Yeah.
In the same string. The fewer times you can do that, the fewer times you're wasting time. The fewer times you can you have that character being missed by the decoder and then turning into garbage on the other side.
There's far more wastes of time in long exchanges that don't need to be long, I think, than are wasted in 5NNs. But
yeah,
just don't do it.
Any other questions?
I want to congratulate you guys. I think this has been astonishing. The depth of experience and knowledge and your ability to communicate it is really terrific. So I just want to thank all four of you, really. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Andy.
Fully agreed.
Yeah, when Ed did kind of one of his seminars, must have been 5 years ago or something like that. I think that really gave the club a big boost. It's certainly what got me started. And I really enjoy RTTY. I mean, it just kind of plays right along. And of course, only having one radio and only one ear that works, among other things. It really is, it is kind of, enjoyable. It's a different set of challenges than some of the other modes. But I have to say, thanks again to Ed for his wisdom, and it's been passed along. Look at this crew here, winning every RTTY contest there is. Pretty cool.
Ed's like Yoda for us RTTY operators.
And Ed figured this all out by himself, pretty much.
True.
He's really self-taught. He got into it knowing nothing and having essentially no Elmers. So it's remarkable.
Yeah. We just had to look at Ed.
I was actually
inspiration. Yeah.
Because Jeff and Ed use WriteLog, I've seriously thought about actually trying a roundup using WriteLog if I could get proficient at it, just to see how RTTY write works and what the differences are. And I know Jeff 10 years ago came down, and unfortunately I had a bad diabetic event when he came over to operate with me, but and he ended up finishing the contest by himself. But he was coming over, I think, to look at how the N1MM operation worked, and I think that I need to kind of figure out. I'd like to go see another option with WriteLog and see.
I don't ever remember using 1MM actually, so I think that was a WriteLog operation. But
was it? Yeah. But I want to understand that, just to see if maybe that I might be able to up my game a little bit. If there's a way to up my game using RTTY Write, I want to know about it.
Yeah, RTTY Write.
I've tried it a couple times, and it's been the adjustment of even just like how F1 works or ESM has been like mind bending for just muscle memory, right? But I also tried DXlog once, and that wasn't quite ready either. So I'd love to see it in action.
But you
And
can
I
see,
know
like,
it's
we're
I
sitting
know it's
here,
fast too.
we're sitting here pushing, it's a push, right? It's
Yeah.
like, can we up the game? Can I get that extra mult? Can I get those few extra QSLs? And can I ever beat Jeff again? Probably not, because Tom keeps putting new antennas up at that station. And it's like, now he's got 80-meter beam up there. It's like, damn, man.
He's got the new pennant receiving antenna.
What the heck?
The one, I mean, I've done a lot more N1MM than RTTY right, but done some RTTY right, but and not to raise a sore subject or anything, but RTTY right is just completely game changing if you are doing a mixed mode compared to.
Oh my gosh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, compared to doing it with N1MM. It goes from sort of painfully painful to just mildly painful and almost sometimes fun. Is my
Well, you could use it with N1MM. It's just not connected. You would have to actually type things in like you do in other modes.
Yeah.
Okay, for those of us that are not initiated, what is a DigiWrite?
So DigiWrite is the FT8/FT4 connector program between that and WriteLog. So like if you're doing an FT8 contest or FT4 contest, DigiWrite will it'll invoke the decoder and it'll connect to WriteLog for you.
So you could do a mixed mode with WriteLog using one of the RTTY decoders.
Yeah, you can do it with N1MM too, but like comparatively, the implementation for WriteLog DigiWrite is completely superior to the one.
So like you were saying, I've got so many years of WriteLog training, in my between my ears that N1MM is just.
What's going on here? Yeah.
I did want to mention briefly that, generally I'm not a big fan of FT8, but for our club competition, if we've got newer operators or people with more meager stations that can get on and make RTTY Roundup QSOs on FT8, more power to them, and we need to support them.
Yeah, we should actually really stress that. I entered the FT8 Roundup a couple weeks ago and did fairly well, and DigiWrite was an absolute dream during that whole contest. But if we can get people up to doing FT modes, maybe look at the logs that were submitted and reach out to them and say, hey, get on the Roundup.
Yeah, because it's only a matter of time before PBRC figures out a way to implement their sweepstakes strategy to this contest.
Yeah, in
my opinion, it's only a matter of time. And it's going to happen unless we're ready for it.
So I'm going to.
That brings up the ARL, that recent ARL rule change, which I think applies to all ARL contests, which says that if you are, their usual rule that you can't use the same transmitter for two different call signs. There's an exception if the person doesn't have access to his own station or has limited access. They don't define what that means.
It's the W2RE rule. It's designed to support operators who want to pay to use the remote ham radio network.
Right, but it doesn't. But obviously, you don't have to pay. I mean, it's like it could be used. Like, I mean, I was thinking, well, what if my, what if my rig is creating RFI? Okay, I have limited access to my station now.
Wife says you can't use it because it's going to interfere with the show.
Yeah. My XYL said forget it. So okay, now I have to.
Well, the intent of the rule was to open up, the ability, it was a lobby by remote ham radio to allow people to use the same station for two different efforts, right? But there's no reason why I couldn't offer K6LRG to another operator for a second effort. But I would have to look at the detail of the rule, but I think that would be acceptable based on the parameters that the variables that they list, right? The arguments.
Yeah, it seems inherently vague because, what is limited access?
They should just scrap the rule. It was stupid. I think it was stupid in the first place. You know, you got to bring a new rig in on sweepstakes and put a new rig in. It was ridiculous. But
Limited access here is about 3 feet between the 6 stations. And we've actually done 4 single band operations in some of the contests. I think ARRL, and they haven't squawked.
No, I think that's different because you have different stations.
it's actually it's the transmitter, it's the radio.
Yeah,
It's
the
the
call
radio.
sign gets pasted on the transmitter.
Okay,
Right,
good. It's not the station.
Right.
It's just the physical radio.
Yeah.
It's a radio.
Hot melt glued to a transmitter.
That's why, you know, with the HMO, you know, you had radios flying out and being replaced, you know, for another effort, which is just makes no sense to me.
Raise your hand if limited access means you trip over a spool of coax you haven't had the good sense to put on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I blew a
got plenty
few.
of those.
Bill, for clarification, this contest uses the ARL circle?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay, so I won't be able to help that way, but I'll give you everyone down there contacts if I can.
Yeah, everyone will, well, I'm going to send out this kind of a survey, and we'll build up a list of who's doing what, and I'll publish that on the, you know, the groups.io reflector. The survey will go out tomorrow. Has a number of questions in there, and I think it also, I mean, has space for comments. And I think if there's some new users, especially who are interested in, you know, an FT8, I hope they appear on there and say, well, I'm not sure what to do, but I might be interested. So it's going to be up to us, and that's, I mean, I'm kind of looking at some of these exalted, skilled people in this on the screen in front of me. You know, we have to get in there and help them set up if they haven't done it the first time. You'll get N1MM going or whatever it may be. Get their radios tuned up and things like that. There's one fella here, KK6PXT here in Livermore, has a good station and stuff, but he hasn't set up for RTTY, so I'm definitely going to try to get him on the air, and that should help. You know, every log counts, and you know, a lot of these guys say they've never done it before, and especially if I could sit there like during a practice session. It'd be neat if we had more practice sessions, like one that was like a week before. The RTTY sprint is okay, but it's kind of weird. But if there was another, you know, RTTY contest even like a week earlier.
We had one last year.
Yeah.
Practice.
One of my logs, RTTY practice session.
Yeah, that would be good. And everybody needs to find at least one buddy to get on the air that's not on this Zoom call.
And,
we're gonna
you
get
know,
50 logs.
with the new radios, it's getting a lot easier to set up a RTTY station.
That's
You know,
true.
when I first started in this, we were having to hack together FSK cables and stuff like that for the K3s and stuff like that. But now, you know, you could set up a flex radio to be a QRV on RTTY in 5 minutes, you know, and without any wires. And, you know, that's not a plug for flex. It's not, it's also for other, you know, types of radios too. They've just gotten phenomenally easier to set up for these digital modes, especially with the introduction of FT8 and the popularity of it. So, you know, I think that, you know, we should be able to get everybody who wants to get on the air.
With a
So
little box called Morty that that you can buy for $35, and it's got USB on one end and FSK on the other end, and you just hook it to the wires on your rig that do FSK, and you're on the air. It's gotten so much simpler.
Jeff, what's that called?
MORTTY. A Google search will find it real quick.
Okay, I've been running a pair of signal links. Well, I've tried running it. My computer will not address 2 signal links. It always goes to 1. Will this be the same problem with the motor RTTY?
Well, so the signal links, the RTTY is going to just appear as more than one serial port. So it'll be able to address them both independently. Basically, you're sending ASCII to this RTTY, and it's generating the FSK on a Arduino chip, effectively.
Yeah, and if you're doing like an SO2 VFO situation, you can't put a lot of radios. It'll support both VFOs on one COM port, at least on the 2 major loggers, I believe. So It's pretty simple.
Or you could do AFSK. Almost all radios have sound cards these days, it seems like.
Well, exactly. And if you're doing FT modes, you already have it hooked up for that essentially.
But you're saying two signal links on when one machine doesn't work correctly with the sound cards, or what actually happens?
It'll always only address one of the signal links. So
Are
for
you
one
using them
computer to two radios, two signal links, it'll always go to the same radio.
Are you using for FSK or AFSK?
AFSK.
Oh, because I had that problem with the rig blasters. And it's the serial port thing, and you have to get a port splitter, and it's a big pain.
And there's no reason why, if we've got newer contesters that are using things like IC 7300s, those things are very easy to set up for RTTY and FT8. And yeah, sometimes you got to use one of those.
So are there resources for that? Because well, I'm waiting for my name to crawl up the waiting list on a K4. So to tide myself over, I got a 7610.
Google it.
Just a few weeks ago, right? So
Google it.
7610 will totally work, and it'll work great.
yeah, I know I got a USB cable, but I mean, there's all the little settings.
Dave, I'd love to get you on Ready this time. Let me know what I can do to help.
Yeah. And there is a lot of resources online to get. I bought a 7300 and I put it on the air in like 20 minutes. Said this is a great radio. I'd recommend this to any new ham, and then I sold it. But it's true. It's a great radio. It's a cool little rig. It's not one that I can.
It's amazing what, I mean, you're right. I mean, I've never met a radio that's so easy to put on digital modes, and also FSK and CW both. You can do it. There's COM port keying built into it. I mean, it's an amazing flexible radio.
Does it have a RTTY decoder in it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I've been playing with it with a K45 K45 keyer. What's his name? Came out with a new keyer. WinKey, and that does it. That works as a RTTY keyboard with it, and then use the decoder in the 7300.
I guess my point is I'm hoping we've got new contesters out there that might either, be 7300 owners or 7610 owners that, it's a very easy radio, both of them, to plug into a computer and get QRV. It works remarkably well.
As long as you don't have RFI.
And obviously, if people have flex radios they want to try, you could feel free to contact me. I'll either help you or put you in touch with somebody that can help you. And the Elecraft guy, I don't know about the K4s. I think we're going to have to rely on some of the newer K4 crew. I don't know if we have any on this call tonight, but maybe Bob Wilson or somebody like that might be able to help. If you got a new K4.
I'm gonna, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say there's lots of K3 resources out there.
Yeah. I'm going to suggest we wrap up. It's been 2 hours.
I agree.
And I think this has been great. I learned a lot personally. So thanks.